Hello and welcome back to Sharing the Love. Today we're sharing the love with the special, incredible, a dear friend of mine, Khalid Allybokus. Welcome.
Welcome. It's so lovely to hear from you.
Oh, it's so lovely
Always,
to
you
hear
bring
from
a
you.
big smile to my face.
You
You
too.
know
I'm so
this.
glad we're doing this finally. It's been
I know it's
a
been a
long
long
time
time
coming.
coming.
Yeah, exactly. To start, could you please introduce yourself with 5 words?
5 words. All
Mm.
right. Fitness, let's say fresh, motivated, let's say righteous, and let's say fun.
Yes. Which one out of those 5 words stands out to you the most in this current phase that you're in?
Definitely has to be righteous.
Mm.
I think that righteousness encapsulates my mentality when it comes to everything in life,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Alrighty, it's time for our love bowl. You know the drill. Just
Okay.
say stop whenever
Yes.
you're ready.
Let's see. Stop.
Alright.
Uh,
Okay. The
I
topic
wonder what
for
it
today
is.
is the duality of life.
The duality of life. Okay.
Okay.
I can play with that.
Yeah. I know you can. That's literally what you were just talking about. My first question for you today. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of the duality of life?
It's just accepting the good and also having the reality of with good comes bad. You can't enjoy a good day without knowing what a bad day is. And you can't live your life being naive to expect that every day is going to be a good day.
Right.
It's a lot easier to be like, man, this is a shit day. Like this
Yeah.
is this is a really bad day, and
Right.
everything in my life seems like it's going bad at the moment, and nothing good is happening. And then I think that it's harder to bring ourselves to that place of gratitude, but it's something that you just need to practice.
Definitely.
And it's always the hardest thing to practice when you're in it, right? I feel like, there's this contagious positivity movement that goes around these days. And it's always about looking at the bright side of things and being positive and being grateful. And although these things are good, at the same time, I think that the reality has to be that if you're feeling bad about something, or if you're feeling low about something, or if you're feeling like it's a little bit tough, go through it. You know what I mean? Don't think that, okay, no, I have to flip a switch
Yeah.
and be positive and start to think positively. And although these things are good and it's a good practice, sometimes you need to feel like shit for a bit,
Definitely.
and it's required, it's necessary. I think too many people try to bypass that and sort of just be like, no, okay, default, I need to be positive, I need to think positively. It's like, it's cool, man. Feel what you have to feel. Because if you bypass that, you sort of get a block because you're forcing it then. You're forcing the positivity upon yourself.
That was a great answer, and what stood out to me the most was the word acceptance. It seems, as you were talking, people have this expectation of it always has to be rainbows and butterflies and dandelions and amazing, and it's like, this is not the reality of life. And somehow we've created this distorted reality, a false sense or a narrative in our heads that it always needs to be high. That's why, as you were saying, when we're sad, we want to escape it because we think it's not normal to be sitting in the sadness. It's not normal to be going through the hardships. When in fact it is, that is the premise of the duality of life, is that you can't have one without the other, and that they do come hand in hand. And the other side of things that really stood out to me is the appreciation, the gratitude part of it, is to understand that there is wisdom, that there is learning that comes off the back of sitting with the sadness or sitting with the hardship and the challenges. If we look back to our biggest growth spurts or points in our lives, they were through those hardships. Because as you
100%.
said, again, when we're happy and everything's great, we don't even, most times we're not even appreciating that we have it now.
No, you're
You
just
know?
like, this is the norm.
This
This
is
is the norm.
Exactly. My next question is, what valuable lessons do you believe we can gain from the duality of life?
The most important lesson that you need to learn is that both of them are necessary in order for you to grow, in order for you to accept and move forward. I'll give you an example.
Please.
Being forced into a certain situation that takes you out of your comfort zone, as opposed to willingly going out of your comfort zone. Sometimes we get so comfortable that we're like, okay, we're content. We're content with where we're at that point in time. And then something like just comes out of the blue and completely throws you off,
Right.
you know, whether it be a loss of somebody, a loss of a job, loss of whatever it may be. That then puts you in a situation where you're like, what do I do? You know, where do I go from here? How do I deal with this? Sometimes you need to be taken back in a way in order for you to realize that this is something that needed to happen to me to force me to project me forward. We get to a place where it's unrecognizable that we're comfortable, and it's very easy to fall into that place.
Right.
And in your head, you'd be like, no, I'm not comfortable, you know, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. But sometimes it takes like a real 8-ball to just hit you and be like, I didn't expect this to happen.
Yeah.
Or this is my worst nightmare.
Right.
And then throughout the sort of phase, you realize that as bad as this thing seems that it happened, you also realize like, it's not that bad. You know what I mean? I'm built tough. I can get through this because I've proven to myself time and time again that no matter what has come my way, I've been able to sort of project myself in a situation where the discomfort has allowed me to grow and allowed me to become bigger and better.
Yeah, and I think the underlying idea behind what you're saying as a mindset and transformation coach is the mindset. The importance of the mindset in those situations when you are experiencing the duality of life itself. And the fear, as you're saying, a lot of the time when that happens, they're like, oh my God, they're being thrown off because something unexpected has happened to them. And this is a whole other thing, managing expectations, as we were talking before, is like we can't expect everything to be, you know, all good and dandy. At the same time, when we are faced with a situation where there is something unexpected and challenging, to sit with ourselves and understand what is the mindset required of me in order to move forward now. Did you victimize yourself? Did you say, why is this happening to me? I don't deserve for this to be happening to me. This has nothing to do with worthiness. And actually, the universe or life or God or whatever you believe in is not out there to get you. That's another thing, right?
No.
You feel that people are taking it so
And
subjectively.
it's not fair either.
Exactly.
It's not fair.
But there's no fairness. It's not, that's what I'm kind of
Exactly.
coming into, is that it's not, people look at it as like, why is this happening to me? Life didn't go out and say, I want to do this to Bana. I want to fuck Bana up. That's not what happened. What happened is that life unfolded, things have unfolded, and it's testing how is Bana going to move forward with this, and how is she going to navigate it in a way that is aligned with her values. Because what I find a lot of the time across my clients, Khalid, and I'll be very honest here, is that they become so misaligned from what their values are, and that then creates even more hardship. That then creates even more friction for them to move forward. And where does that come from? From a very like root cause, is that there's a lack of acceptance. But when you allow it and you accept it, that's when you can then look at it from a more clear or higher perspective to see, okay, how can I then navigate this and move forward?
I feel like it's super important that you brought up the whole idea of perspective. The moment that you feel anxious towards something, if you just shifted your perspective on things and allowed yourself to say, I'm excited for this, your physiological effects are exactly the same. But now that your mentality have changed, your perspective has changed, I'm now excited for what's to come, which is now warranting all of the physiological effects that it's having on my body, as opposed to having the other side of things, which is I'm really anxious, I'm not sure what's going to happen. So I'll give you an example for this. Yesterday I did after a year and a couple of months living in Daha, I finally did my driving exam. Well, I was sitting there for, I think it was 8:30 when I actually got into the car. I've been there from 6 a.m. in a room full of 151 people. When am I finally going to get this over and done with? You know what I mean? I'm confident in my abilities to drive. The actual practicality of driving shouldn't be an issue for me. Yet, because of this time that I had to wait, it started to stem a little bit of disorientation to myself in my abilities. I started to doubt myself because I'm like, Am I going to pass the test? Am I going to fail? Am I going to have to come back and do this again?
All right.
So I stopped myself there. And this is the importance of practicing. Instead of bringing it from a place of fear, shift that perspective into a fear of excitement. I'm excited for this to be over so that I could finally get my driver's license and have the confidence to go out there and drive again. I just made that small shift, and it took practice. Like, I could feel the physiological effects on my body that I'd been sitting there for a long time, canned in this room. It's not comfortable. Got into the car. I did what I knew I could do. I was excited for it. I didn't look at it as a negative thing. And I said, what's the worst that can happen?
Wow.
I failed the test and I do it again. You know what I mean? Like, that's the worst possible case scenario here. So realistically, just shifting, making that small shift from nervousness to excitedness changes the whole game.
100%. And it's like you always have an option. There's always a choice there. And I love that you said that, although this might seem like a simple example, it really does speak for the louder parts of other life experiences. I really want to emphasize compassion, right? What you did essentially, without you even noticing, is that you gave yourself grace. You gave yourself compassion to understand, okay, I can feel the anxiety. You allowed yourself to listen to what's going on. Because for most cases, and this is what I did for most of my life, my coping mechanism was, as soon as emotions came up, I want to run away. I don't want to deal with it. So I want to distract myself. Let me watch on Netflix. Let me do that. No, for you, you actually went and attuned, you listened to what is going on, understood what you are feeling, and because you now know and have it right in front of you, you have that clarity, you were able to then do something about it. And look at where it got you, you know. And that's, I guess, the idea.
I passed.
Exactly. Amazing. Congratulations, you know. Had you let the anxiety fester, the thoughts would have become louder, the thoughts would have become worse, and maybe you were more likely going to fail, not because of your skill, not because
100%.
of your ability, but
100%.
because you're literally physiologically, as you were saying, you're just not in the right state to go and do something like that. My next question is, if the concept of duality of life was a piece of advice that you would give to your younger self, what would that look like?
Being compassionate and just not being so hard on yourself
Right.
when things don't have the ideal outcome for what you wanted, whatever it was that you wanted. I look back to my younger days as an aspiring footballer. When I used to train really, really hard, eat correctly, sleep correctly, like everything that I could do in my power to prepare myself for a trial, I would do my best to tick every single box. And, you know, I pride myself upon being quite disciplined in the way that I do things. And that was something that was drilled into me at a very young age. What I didn't know back then, which I know now, is that you can do everything absolutely perfectly to the best of your ability. And whatever it is, the goal that you're searching for or the aspired outcome that you wanted, it might not work out. And that's okay. One, it shouldn't dampen your spirits. Two, it doesn't mean what you did to prepare was wrong. Of course, there's always room for improvement. Never get that twisted. There's always room to improve. You can always do better than what you did before. But just because you weren't given an opportunity that you set out to achieve doesn't mean that the process that you did leading up for that was wrong or was incorrect, or that it was a fault within yourself. So I think telling my younger self that you can do everything right and still not get the desired outcome, but be compassionate to yourself and allow yourself to reward the fact that you worked so hard for something, you remained so disciplined, you did everything that you could in your power, and just because you weren't granted this opportunity isn't something to show that you're not good enough.
Wow, that was incredible. One thing I feel, Khalid, that we are always, or most of us are really focused on the outcome. We've become fiends or addicted to the outcome and the goals, you know. We forget the journey that it took, the becoming that it got us there.
It's so cliche, but it's so relevant.
Of course, and it's the thing is, we talk about cliche, Khalid, but at the end of the day, people aren't. It's not registering. That's the thing, you know. Ultimately, it can be as cliche as you want, as cheesy as you want, but it is the reality, and it's time for us to start accepting that. And this is really the point of STL, is to show on a higher level that the human experience is one and the same, and it's not again a measure of your self-worth. It's not a measure of how much work you put in. It's not a measure of anything. It's just life. Again, it goes back full circle to what we were talking. It's not personal, especially when you know that you've done everything that you can and you've put in 100% into it. It's understanding that things sometimes are not going to work out, not because of you, but just because it didn't. And sometimes, and more often than not, for something better to work out later on.
100%. This is exactly what I was thinking. Like, when God closes one door, he opens many others for you. And
100%.
whatever it is that you believe in, it's still universal.
But what happens is we get so stuck on this one door that's not opening that we lose sight of all the other doors that are open and ready. And even wilder than any dream that you might have. But because we're so here, and you see so many people, 10, 20, 30 years, they're still stuck on this door, and they tell you, people see them as so bitter because it's just this focus, this attachment. This is why
it's hyperfixation.
100%.
Hyperfixation on the one specific goal, but not realizing that there are so many different things that you can, in the larger sense of life, like these things and these skills that you sort of practiced for so long, they're transferable, and everything we do is, so you can't hyperfixate on one certain goal when actually your skills and your capabilities can open doors for you in so many different directions.
100%. Yes, definitely.
How often do you feel like, do you hear of somebody who started in one career and end up on a completely different sort of,
most
life
of the
path?
people I know in our generation.
And it's like, and that's the thing, and it's because you just allowed your skills, and you didn't narrow your skill set to only being applicable to one certain thing. You just allowed it to be able to transform you in any sort of circumstance that you're in. That's why there's so many people these days. You can put them anywhere and they'll do well.
You reminded me of a conversation I recently had with my therapist on flexibility and how we are not taught flexibility. And this is something that I really love we've hit on when we're talking about the duality of life. Is, again, it's not binary, it's not good or bad, it's not black or white, it's black and white, it's dark and light, and it's the whole spectrum. I love that you said the word spectrum, because it's not this side or this side and they're opposing each other. It's actually, there's so many different levels within that realm, and flexibility is something that we really need to start implementing within all our institutions, to understand that as a human, there's no one size fits all for anything, be it success, be it growth, be it achievement, be it whatever it is. So how are we trying to implement something so rigid in life, upon so many different personalities and so many different experiences and so many different things? So thank you for sharing that, and I think that's a very valuable point to really share with our audience on how important flexibility is when it comes to the duality of life and acceptance as well. This whole conversation reminded me of one I had with my best friend's mother a few years ago, and she said, to navigate life in simplicity, not ease, but in simplicity, no expectations, no attachments, no judgments, the cardinal rule. And when we are able to come to that space where it's not really a death of the ego, but where the higher self is in control, and to understand we just flow through life with that flexibility, with that acceptance, with that knowing, a deeper knowing that is within our spirit, within our soul, that everything that is happening is truly happening for a higher purpose, even if we don't see it, even if we don't know it, and we don't have to know it, we just have to trust it. Where can our audience find you or connect with you?
You can, I currently live in Doha, in Qatar. So if you're here,
hit me up.
But yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Allybokus _Khalid. And I think that's pretty much it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I've been actually taking a little bit of hiatus from social media.
Yeah.
I feel like you need a little bit of a cleanse every now and then.
Definitely.
So,
Definitely.
but again, it doesn't mean that I'm not active, and
No,
I'm always
exactly.
contactable.
And his door is always open. Please, if you need anything on life that you would like to talk about, this is your man. He's mine too, and I'm so privileged and honored and blessed to know you and to be loved by you and to share this experience with you. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you to our audience who are here connecting with us and learning valuable lessons with us. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, the whole shebang, and we'll see you again in our next episode.